Hello, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is a Wednesday, and that means it's the Stitch of the Week. So today we are going to be doing another Tunisian stitch pattern tutorial. My last one was the Tunisian running chain stitch. I don't know if that's its real name. I'm calling it that because I've never seen it before. But as I said before, I'm sure it's been done. I just haven't seen it. I don't want to take credit for something, that I probably didn't invent. So, and the same goes for this stitch. It's going to be a variation of the running chain stitch. I'm going to call it the chain link because I think it looks like links of chains. So we're going to call it that. So to get started, I am using my eye hook or 5.5mm hook, and I'm going to be using some worsted weight yarn or number 4. And this stitch will work with a variety of hook sizes and different types of yarn. Now I do recommend not using fuzzy or furry because you really want to see the stitch definition. And when you're using, furry or fuzzy yarn, I don't want to, it's not my favorite, but also it doesn't really show the stitches off because, you notice the fur more than the stitch. So anyway, let's get started. And you can also just use a regular hook to do this little tutorial. So if you've never done Tunisian before and you're not sure if you want to invest in a bunch of hooks, you can certainly feel free to just use a regular straight hook. And there are some Tunisian patterns that just use regular straight hooks. So don't feel like you have to spend all this money on buying a whole bunch of tools. If you really love Tunisian, then feel free to add to your hook collection and grab some Tunisian hooks. Okay, so this stitch pattern is the same as the other as far as the multiple. It's a you're going to chain a multiple of 3. So we're going to chain 15. Okay, so I have my 15 chains, and we are going to do a setup row like before. In a lot of Tunisian patterns, the first row is your setup row. So we're just going to pull up loops, and I like to do it in the back bump to get started for row 1, set it up. And with this stitch pattern, I am working on a pattern for this. Hopefully it's going to be part of my 12 days of warmth. If not, it's just going to be a regular pattern that I will eventually release, but I'm hoping that it'll be part of that. Okay, so we should have 15 loops on our hook. So 1, 2. So we have 15. So the nice thing is with Tunisian, whatever you chain is however many stitches you're going to have. So we chain 15, we have 15 loops. So we're going to do our return pass because Tunisian is always in 2 parts. You're going to work, I always consider part A, part B. So you put the loops on the hook, then you have to work them off, and that counts technically as 1 row. So this is the return pass. So you're going to pull through 1 loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and you're going to continue to pull through 2 for the remainder of row 1. So Tunisian's 2 parts. Okay, so we have our first row done. Now we're going to get ready for the stitch pattern. So second row is going to be like the running chain stitch. We're going to work a purl stitch in the first stitch, and then we're going to pull up 2 loops, so like we're doing a decrease, so you have your 2 bars or bars on there, and work a Tunisian simple. Now we're going to yarn over purlwise, so you're going to have your yarn in front and wrap it around. And your next stitch will be a purl. So the reason why I'm calling it yarn over purlwise so that you can make a purl stitch. So we are going to pull up 2 loops again and work a Tunisian simple stitch. And we need to put the extra bar back on because we whatever amount of stitches you start with is however many you want on your hook. So we're going to yarn over purlwise, and the reason why is our next stitch is a purl. If I yarned over a regular way, I can't do a purl. So, and if you're a knitter, that would be familiar to you, because sometimes you have to yarn over purlwise so that you can do a purl stitch. So same kind of concept. Okay, so we've done our purl stitch, so we're going to pull up 2 bars like that, yarn over, work our Tunisian simple stitch, and now we have to put that other loop back on our hook. So yarning over purlwise, yarn in the front, and wrap it around. And now we can work our purl stitch. And we're going to pull up 2 loops again in Tunisian simple. Work our Tunisian simple stitch with the 2 loops together, so you can see it's a decrease, but we need to yarn over purlwise because we do not want to decrease. We are decreasing, but then we're putting it right back on. So we're decreasing, increasing, decreasing, increasing, because we want to have 15 loops on our hook. So now we're going to work a purl stitch. And then our last stitch, I always work a Tunisian knit stitch. Just think it gives you a little bit of a nicer edge. Alright, so we should have 15 loops on our hook. Yep, so 15. So whatever you start with is however many you want on your hook when you're working your rows. So you work them off the same way. You yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the remainder of the row. So this stitch pattern is in 2 rows. So we just worked row 2, so you're going to be working row 2 and 3. So it's a variation of the running chain stitch, but it's kind of mixed up a little bit, if that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so our first stitch here is going to be a Tunisian. We're going to work these 2 together like we've been doing. And work our Tunisian simple stitch there. We're going to yarn over purlwise and work a purl. And we're going to do that again. So insert the hook in the 2 bars, work a Tunisian simple, yarn over purlwise, work a purl stitch in the next one. So work Tunisian simple with 2 together, and then yarn over purlwise, putting that loop right back on our hook. Now we're working a purl stitch. So it's the same thing kind of as row 2, we're just kind of mixing it up to create a different, stitch pattern. Alright, so now we need to work the 2 loops. And put that back on, so now we work a purl stitch. So now you're going to have an extra stitch at the end here before you work your final Tunisian knit stitch. So in the extra stitch, you're just working a Tunisian simple stitch. And then we work our final knit stitch. So if you look, it looks like a little bit of a chain there, and you just put your hook in that chain and work your knit stitch. And you should have 15 loops on your hook, so 1, 2, yep, so 15. So again, do your return pass the seam. So pull through 1, pull through 2, all the way across. And then row 3 is complete. So now we're going to work row 4. So row 4 is going to be a repeat of row 2. So yarn over in front, first stitch is a purl stitch. And then your next stitch is going to be working the 2 together, Tunisian simple, and then do your yarn over purlwise. Next stitch is a purl. And the next stitch is the Tunisian simple 2 together, or decrease, and then put your loop back on, yarn over purlwise. The next stitch is a purl. So it literally is the same as the Tunisian running chain stitch. It's just, as I said, you're kind of just mixing it up a little bit so to create a different fabric. And then our second to last stitch is the purl, and then we're working the Tunisian knit stitch, and you can see your chains starting to pop up, your linked chains. I think they look like linked chains a little bit, or maybe broken linked chains. And you just work off your loops like you normally would. And then there is row 4, and then row 5 is a repeat of row 3. So you're going to work the 2 together, yarn over purlwise, so the first 2 together, Tunisian simple, next stitch purl, 2 together, Tunisian simple, next one is purl. Now sometimes with this stitch it can get a little bit lost in there, so you want to make sure that you don't forget it. So like this guy can ride up a little bit and then you can almost disappear, but it's there, so you just want to be mindful of that. Working the simple, yarn over purlwise, working the purl. So we're at our last stitch here, and that one is a Tunisian simple. And then you work your Tunisian knit stitch for the last one. And then you're going to yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. Okay, so now I'm going to work, we are at row 6, so that is the same as row 2, working the chain link, so purl stitch in the first, and then them 2 together, yarn over purlwise, and then our last one is a purl, or second to last, and then the last is the Tunisian knit, and then you just work those guys off. So pretty simple, just doing something with yarn overs, working stitches together, and just kind of mixing up the stitch pattern to create a different fabric with your yarn, which I love doing. And again, this stitch pattern is nice because it tends to lay more flat, as Tunisian tends to be a curler. So as you can see, it's definitely a little bit more flat. So I'll work a couple more rows so you can start to see the linked chains a little bit more. You can kind of see them here, there, or maybe that's a bad name, I'm not sure, but we'll go with it. Alright, so I'll work a few more rows and I'll meet you back.